All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly kind of powerful psychological tool, compartmentalization. Now, we all do it to some extent to cope with life, but we're going to focus on how it's used as a pretty sophisticated tactic for manipulation, allowing someone to live completely different, contradictory lives, all at the same time. Let's get into it.
So here's our roadmap. First, we'll nail down what compartmentalization actually is. Then, we'll see how these separate realities are built. We'll look at a key tool called mirroring. It's the secret sauce that makes this work. After that, we'll explore the confusing, often invisible impact on other people. And finally, we'll uncover why this is so often less of a defense and more of an offensive weapon.
Okay, so first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say compartmentalization in this context? Let's define it. At its core, it's the mind's ability to put different parts of your life into separate, totally sealed boxes. Think of it like a kind of psychological quarantine. This makes sure that the version of you who is a super serious boss at work never ever crosses paths with the carefree, wild version your friends see on the weekend. The two realities are kept completely apart. And this quote just nails it. It's like life becomes a series of completely separate plays. The person is an actor and they just move from one stage to the next. For each play, whether it's work or family or their friend group, they put on a different costume, use different lines, and play a totally different role. And the key is, the audience in one theater has no idea the actor is even performing in the others. So how in the world does this work in real life? Let's take a look at the actual strategy behind juggling all these different personas. The whole strategy, the entire thing, hangs on one really risky bet that all these different social circles exist in their own little bubbles. It's all based on the assumption that your work friends will never meet your college buddies and your family won't ever talk to your neighbors. And it's in those gaps, those blind spots between the groups, that these totally different identities can be built without any fear of being called out. And this is exactly how the performance gets tailored for each audience. At work, you might see the helpful, patient model employee, but out with friends, suddenly they're free-spirited, super relaxed. And then with family, they're the pillar of stability, the responsible one. Each group is interacting with a completely different, custom-built character, and none of them have a clue the others even exist. And let's be really clear here, this is not just about trying to fit in or avoid some awkward conversations. No, this is strategic. It's a fragmentation that's used for tactical advantage. So for example, it allows someone to quietly undermine a colleague at work while, at the same time, keeping up this supportive, friendly act in a totally different social circle. They can slowly destroy someone's reputation and nobody can connect the dots back to them. But, to pull off an act this complex, you need a very specific skill. You have to be able to slip into these different groups without anyone noticing. And that skill is called mirroring. Mirroring is really the secret sauce that makes the whole compartmentalization thing work so well. It's this chameleon-like ability to just adopt the characteristics of whatever group you're in. You reflect their values, their behaviors, their opinions right back at them. And it lets you blend in and earn their trust almost instantly. And what's wild is just how deep this mimicry goes. This is so much more than just agreeing with people. We're talking about adapting everything: the slang they use, their body language, their sense of humor, even how much risk they're willing to take. It's like a method actor who literally never breaks character. Just look at the contrast here. This isn't just being socially flexible, This is a calculated mechanism. In one room, they're using careful, formal language. In another, it's all slang and risky jokes. By becoming a perfect reflection of each group, they get the most influence possible and, at the same time, make sure nobody gets close enough to see the real person underneath. So this all sounds incredibly effective from the manipulator's point of view. But what does it feel like for the people who are actually being targeted by this kind of behavior? Well, the thing is, the impact is almost never one big, dramatic event. It's more of a slow, creeping campaign of confusion. Victims will often feel like something's wrong, but they can never quite put their finger on what it is. For the victim, the experience follows this really devastating path. It starts with just noticing inconsistencies, weird gaps in logic or someone being friendly one day and totally cold the next. But because they're locked out of those other stages, they can't connect the dots. That leads them to start doubting their own reality, their own judgment. And eventually, they begin to internalize all those subtle criticisms, which can just be crushing to their self-worth. Okay, So let's pull all these pieces together now and reframe how we think about what compartmentalization truly is when it's used this way. And this right here, this is the single most important takeaway from our whole conversation. We might think of this as some kind of defense mechanism, a way to protect a fragile ego. But in this context, it's something else entirely. It is an active, offensive weapon for social engineering. It's used proactively to manipulate relationships, to get an advantage, to exploit other people's vulnerabilities. And when you combine it with other nasty tactics like gaslighting or intermittent reinforcement, wow, its power to control and disrupt just gets multiplied, big time. And that brings us to this quote, which just perfectly captures its quiet power. It's an invisible but devastating force. It works under the radar. There are no loud fights, no open conflicts, just the silent, steady erosion of trust that often goes completely unnoticed until all the damage has been done. Which leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. In a world where everybody, to some extent, presents a curated, edited version of themselves online and in life, understanding tactics like this is more critical than ever. It forces us to ask, how do we know what's real? And how do we protect our own judgment from these invisible forces?